Hello, and welcome to the channel. For this video, I'm actually taking you on a walking tour of Cypress Gardens, at least the botanical gardens known as Cypress Gardens. And before I really get started into this video, I'm going to do a quick disclaimer. I don't know a lot about plants, I really don't. I'm going to do my best to point out the few things that I do recognize here at the park, like the legendary banyan tree. Most of what I talk about in this video is going to be nostalgia of growing up coming to Cypress Gardens. Now, Cypress Gardens has taken on many forms over the years. Originally, it opened in Winter Haven in 1936 as just the Botanical Gardens, and has kind of evolved over time, and I'll talk about the different iterations of it. Right now, it's a section of Legoland Florida. So when you first entered the Legoland theme park, and basically head towards the left and walk down the main pathway. As you kind of gravitate towards the lake, you're going to see that giant Cypress Garden sign that I walked past at the beginning of this video. Once you get there, you'll see like this old decorative bridge, as well as a couple nature pathways. That's basically what I'm covering in this video, and that's the original gardens that opened in 1936 and was added to the National Registry of Historic Sites in 2014. So Cypress Gardens transferred through a couple different owners over the years. So the park was originally opened by Dick Pope in 1936. It had passed through several owners over the years. I became familiar with Cypress Gardens when they were owned by Harcourt Brace Stavanovich. These HBJ Parks, they actually had this annual pass that worked at all three of their Florida parks. It was Cypress Gardens, it was SeaWorld of Orlando, and it was Boardwalk and Baseball in Davenport. So pretty much every family vacation from 1987, 88, 89, 90, we lived in these HBJ parks. So when I'm walking around Cypress Gardens now, it doesn't feel like I'm just visiting a theme park or a botanical gardens. It feels like I'm walking around my old neighborhood, so it's kind of cool. So if you kind of squint right now, off to my left-hand side, you can see a body of water known as Lake Eloise. This is a really scenic area of Florida and was a very popular filming location for a lot of movies and TV shows. If you ever read up on Cypress Gardens history, almost the first movie they always mention is the Esther Williams film called Easy to Love. One of the reasons why that movie always comes up in the discussion about Cypress Gardens is one of the props that they built for that movie is still here at the park. They have what is known as the Florida pool, and it's the swimming pool that's built in the shape of Florida. And if I remember right, it's shown at the end of that movie. That pool is definitely showing its age. You know, I'm going to be walking up to it shortly, and you'll see it's not in the greatest condition, but at least now you'll understand why that Florida-shaped pool is here. It was built for a movie. I think that movie was made in the 1950s, if I recall. So HBJ owned Cypress Gardens until 1990. They had experienced a hostile takeover attempt, and they averted it, but it financially damaged the company brutally. HBJ was mostly a book publisher, but they did own a couple theme parks at the time. They could no longer carry the debt load after the failed hostile takeover, so they sold this park to Anheuser-Busch in 1990. Now, Busch purchased multiple theme parks as a package deal, and it became very clear very quickly that Busch wasn't interested in Cypress Gardens whatsoever. So they actually spun it off, and it became its own separate entity sometime in the mid-1990s. I think it was around 1995, 96. And the park continued, was doing pretty well too. And then 9/11 happened, and then tourism just collapsed. The park actually was forced to close in 2003. That wasn't the end for Cypress Gardens yet. There was a park owner up in Georgia who ran a wildlife park known as Wild Adventures, who decided to purchase Cypress Gardens. And he completely rebuilt the park, added a bunch of amusement park rides and roller coasters, and reopened the park as Cypress Gardens Adventure Park in 2004. As much as I loved Cypress Gardens from the 1980s, I still think Cypress Gardens Adventure Park was my favorite form of this particular park. There was just something amazing about the wooden roller coaster. There was a great little scenic train ride that used to take you around the sinkhole. They had purchased the Starliner, which was this really beautiful historic roller coaster from Panama City, and built it beside the Triple Hurricane. They had made so many amazing changes, but they didn't have the financial resources to support all these upgrades and changes so quickly. Cypress Gardens finally went out of business for the last time in 2009. The park sat dormant for about a year, and then Merlin Entertainment came in and purchased it and redeveloped the park into Legoland Florida. And Legoland had its grand opening in 2011, and it's been operating ever since. As someone who was born and raised in Florida, I do kind of chuckle every time I see one of those alligator signs. I guess if you're not used to being down here, the alligators might be an issue. That's just a part of life when it comes to having a park like this right here on the water. There's probably hundreds of alligators that live in Lake Eloise, and they love to come and sun themselves here at Cypress Gardens because of the sidewalks and all the embankments and stuff right next to the water. They are cold-blooded animals, and they need to warm up sometimes. And Cypress Gardens is a nice, quiet place for them to come and visit. And it's not uncommon for you to see an alligator just kind of laying around here at the botanical gardens. Another thing that I'll point out, if you're a bird watcher or an aspiring photographer, you can get some really amazing vantage points from the botanical gardens here at Legoland. There's just so many opportunities here. Lake Eloise is absolutely beautiful. And as you can see, I finally walked up to the Florida pool that I was talking about earlier. And man, that water is super nasty. They really could use some chlorine over here, or maybe running. I don't know if this pool has a filter or a pump or something, but it looks like it really could use a nice cleaning, because that water is really black and ugly. I wouldn't want to be Esther Williams today. I will give Legoland some credit. It is kind of nice that they put up a sign. It talks about the history of the Florida pool. For the longest time when I was a kid, I didn't know what the Florida pool was all about. It was an era before the internet, so you couldn't really look up that stuff very easily. Didn't know about the Esther Williams movie until much later in life, until I was in college. So I've walked across the bridges here at the Botanical Gardens a few times, and by now you've probably noticed that the canals are actually kind of wide. That's because this park was actually known for the electric boat ride through the Botanical Gardens. I don't remember the exact date that they installed those. I believe it was sometime in the 1950s. I remember that electric boat ride as a kid, and it was one of my favorite parts of this park. That electric boat ride ran pretty much continuously up into the park's initial closure in 2003. In 2004, this park got hit by, I believe, 3 consecutive hurricanes, and it did a lot of damage to that canal system, so the electric boat ride never came back when this park was Cypress Gardens Adventure Park. So the canals here at Cypress Gardens were sitting pretty much unused for about 2 decades, and then Legoland just recently reintroduced the ride, and it's now called Pirate River Quest. And it's a fun little kids ride now. They have a bunch of Lego statues and structures throughout the canals, and you still get a nice little tour of the botanical gardens here at Cypress Gardens. So like I said earlier, I'm not really an expert on plants. I'm a little at a disadvantage walking around the botanical gardens. I will tell you from the website that one of the things that they pride themselves here at the Cypress Gardens Botanical Gardens is that they have 30 different kinds of palm trees, 10 different varieties of banana trees, 15 types of azaleas, and 10 different kinds of camellias. That sounds pretty good to me. I will acknowledge, though, that the gardens aren't as vibrant and colorful as they used to be. Back when botanical gardens were the main draw at this park, they used to plant a lot more annuals, and it was a lot more colorful. Now that they've kind of de-emphasized the botanical gardens here at Legoland, they've scaled that back quite a bit. You can tell they just don't plant the annuals like they used to. It's mostly perennials and stuff, and it's still a nice botanical gardens, but it's definitely not what it was at its peak. I think it probably peaked in the 90s. It was really nice in the 80s as well. They put a lot of emphasis in the botanical gardens. So right now I'm walking towards the Japanese gardens of the park. I really like this section of the park. It's a nice, quiet, tranquil setting, away from the rides and attractions of Legoland. I also feel a lot of nostalgia for this section of the park because I'm pretty sure this section is what inspired HBJ Parks in the 1980s to build Park Place over at Boardwalk and Baseball, the sister park. Park Place was very similar to what you're seeing right now. It was a bunch of sculptures and water features, and it was very tranquil. They built it away from the roller coasters and amusement rides and everything. Even though Boardwalk and Baseball was a pretty short-lived amusement park, it only lasted 3 years, it's still probably my all-time favorite amusement park. It's the first place I rode a wooden roller coaster, and just an amazing experience. I was a huge fan of baseball cards at the time, and I mean, I had so many amazing first-time experiences with like a log flume and an IMAX film, and there were so many things that they did that no one else did, and you only have one first time, and Boardwalk and Baseball gave me that. That park was just absolute nirvana for the 3 years it was open, and I can't recall ever having as much fun as I did at that park. I really love walking around this section of Legoland, though. The thing about this place is it still has that charm. When you are walking around Cypress Gardens, it's a time capsule to basically Florida's past. Back in the 1930s and 40s and 50s and up into the 1960s, all these roadside attractions were basically the lifeblood of Florida's tourism. And, attractions like Six Gun Territory and Cypress Gardens and Silver Springs and Rainbow Springs and Birch State Park, all those things, those roadside attractions were basically all you could do in Florida for the longest of time. That all changed in 1971 when Walt Disney World opened. But up until that point, this was everything. Cypress Gardens was the number one tourist attraction in Florida for a number of years, I believe through almost the entire 1950s and early 60s. The wonderful part about this park is when you walk around and look at the railings and the bridges and the concrete in the ground, and it all looks like 1955. If you want to take a time machine and travel back in time, you completely get that vibe when you visit the botanical gardens here at Legoland. So I finally made it to the world-famous banyan tree that they have here at Cypress Gardens, and this tree really is incredible. When the hurricanes came through here in 2004, this tree didn't budge, even though it knocked down a bunch of buildings throughout the park. Hurricane Charlie especially did a lot of damage. This banyan tree is just so sturdy, and it was planted as just a seedling back in 1939, I believe. And it has grown to just be this huge centerpiece of the botanical gardens. And it was just a genius move by Dick Polk to plant a banyan tree. I mean, it really is something quite special, seeing this banyan tree as a kid and just being so amazed at how big the tree is. And obviously I was only like 2.5 feet tall back then, so it seemed even more massive than you could imagine. So here's a cool piece of trivia about the park. When the park first opened as Cypress Gardens Adventure Park back in 2004, they built a wooden roller coaster for the park, and it was named Triple Hurricane. And it took its name from the 3 hurricanes that hit Cypress Gardens during the 2004 hurricane season. Now, even though Legoland completely transformed the old adventure park, they did retain that wooden roller coaster, and it's now named CoasterSaurus. Speaking of the roller coasters here too at the park, the Dragon roller coaster, as it's known in Legoland, was actually based on another existing roller coaster that was originally built for Cypress Gardens Adventure Park. What's interesting about that particular ride is they added that entire dark ride section for Legoland, but when it was first built for Cypress Gardens Adventure Park, it was named the Okeechobee Rampage, and it was just basically that end section of twists and turns. That entire building and dark ride portion was added when they transitioned from Cypress Gardens Adventure Park to Legoland Florida. So right now I'm walking around the section of the gardens dedicated to statues of historic figures, and I just viewed the statue of St. Francis. There's not a lot of information about the backstory of this particular statue. I did my best to try to figure out who put it here and when, and as far as I can tell, Dick Pope installed the statues. What's funny too is I found people selling postcards of that particular statue, so apparently it was a big deal when they first installed it. But as you can probably tell by the video now, I'm walking around probably the least popular section of Legoland at this point. There really isn't a lot of foot traffic to the old Cypress Gardens section of the park anymore. I don't think a lot of people who even visit Legoland are even aware it's here. I mean, it is all the way in the back of the park now, the way it's situated. It didn't used to be. When this park was Cypress Gardens in its original form, the building off to the left of the Botanical Gardens used to be the main entrance. So this used to be like the prime attraction for the longest time, up until about 2003. When they converted it to the Adventure Park, they put the parking lot on the other side of the attraction, and now it's farthest away from where people park ever since about 2004. Another cool piece of trivia related to Cypress Gardens is this is often cited as the very first theme park ever built in Florida. It was also Florida's most popular theme park for probably 15 to 20 years. I mean, it didn't start falling off in popularity until after Walt Disney World opened in 1971. So as I curve around this sidewalk to my right-hand side, I'm going to be coming up on the iconic gazebo here at Cypress Gardens. Back when this was mostly just the Botanical Gardens, a lot of people used to get married here, and it was a really popular place for, big wedding celebrations, that kind of stuff. So this gazebo was added to the park back in 1969, and its construction is kind of unusual. For example, the roof of it is actually a World War II era radar dish turned upside down, and the pillars used to hold the roof of the gazebo up are actually from a cigar factory that was located in Ybor City that burned down sometime in the 1960s. It's still one of the most photographed sections of Cypress Gardens, and you could see Merlin was doing a lot of work, cleaning up the landscaping and freshening up that section of this botanical garden. Let me talk about some of my favorite attractions that used to be here at Cypress Gardens but don't exist anymore. The first one was a devastating loss, and they only just discontinued it within the last year. They used to have a water ski show, and this was like the water ski capital of the world. At least that's how they used to advertise Cypress Gardens. When you walk through the Legoland Florida parks, when you're walking on that main pathway that wraps around Lake Eloise, you'll see the two large open-air auditoriums that look out to Lake Eloise, and that's where the water ski show happened. And I mean, that was a long, continuous show, and it ran from like the 1930s all the way up into about 2024. I think they discontinued it back in December. Another attraction that I really loved at Cypress Gardens, and it was around quite a while. I believe they added it back in 1983, and it was this rising observation deck that was called the Island in the Sky. It only recently got scrapped within the last, I think, 5-6 years. Legoland unfortunately couldn't buy spare parts for it anymore, and that's why they scrapped it, but it was a wonderful attraction. It was one of my favorite rides back when this place was Cypress Gardens Adventure Park. But like I said, unfortunately, it was such an old ride that just couldn't get spare parts for it anymore. The one attraction that Legoland eliminated, and I'm not really sure why they did it, there was the butterfly house that was here at Cypress Gardens, and that was such an amazing attraction where they had the butterfly gardens, and I never understood why that one went away. I mean, I guess it's a maintenance disaster because of the constant cleaning that's required when you have butterflies, constantly hatching every day, but it's one of those attractions that I really think it was worth it, and I think that was the one that they eliminated that they probably shouldn't have. Another attraction that I miss, but I kind of understand went away, they used to have an attraction called Cypress Junction, and it was this massive model train display in HO scale, and it was absolutely beautiful. That building became what is now known as the Legoland Toy Factory. So I understand why they made it go away, because they were trying to make room for more Lego attractions, but I'm a big model train guy, so that was another one of my favorite attractions here at Cypress Gardens. Towards the end of Cypress Gardens Adventure Park, there were a couple films that were actually shot here. One of them was the John Cusack movie Grace is Gone, which came out in movie theaters in 2007. And then there was a straight-to-DVD movie called H2O Extreme, which was about water skiing. And that was pretty much the last film produced here at Cypress Gardens, I guess while it was Cypress Gardens. I don't believe any films have been shot here since it became Legoland Florida. If I'm wrong about that, go ahead and comment below. Here's another cool piece of trivia. Basically, in the present-day location of the Legoland Hotel, that's where the Nature's Way animal area used to be for Cypress Gardens. And a lot of people don't realize that Cypress Gardens actually had kind of like a zoo area, and it had quite a few animals. They actually had a 10-foot long alligator. His name was Tarzan because he was actually in the Tarzan movie made in the 1940s. They also had habitats for lemurs, goats, snakes, and exotic birds. Well, it looks like I'm getting to the end of my round trip tour of the Cypress Gardens area of Legoland, Florida. I just wanted to thank you for joining me on this walking tour today. And I also hope that you'd consider clicking on that subscribe button above. It really helps out this channel.